Welcome to SNF This, the podcast where we pull back the bed sheets on skilled nursing facilities, educating, entertaining, and occasionally risking being reported to HR.
Welcome to this episode of SNF This. I'm really excited to have my friend Adair. We met it's almost a year ago now. Which is kind of crazy because it feels in some ways more than a year ago, but some ways not too long ago. And we partner with their group out of Oregon and Washington and love working with them. So excited for you guys to get to know her a little bit better, but also talk about some of the complexities and the things we're facing in post-acute long-term care. So Adair, welcome. Thanks for being on our podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been fun to see you and hang out with you those last couple of days. So tell us a little about yourself, your background, how'd you get into long-term care? And then why do you stay?
Okay. My background is as a nurse practitioner. I specialized in my master's program in geriatrics, got board certified in both adult and geriatrics back when those were separate specialties. And always just really loved working with the elderly. I think comes from my background of being a Girl Scout and going to the nursing homes and playing bingo and instruments with the people growing up.
Awesome.
So, and then just my connections with my own grandparents. I've always just really loved and respected older adults and wanted to see what I could do to help improve their care. So that's why I went into it. Why I stay is it's a vulnerable population that still needs a lot of support and help. And it's just very rewarding field to work in. And I also like working with teams, and it's a very collaborative, team-focused area of medicine where you're in a nursing facility and partnering with the social worker, the dietitian, the director of rehab, the resident care managers, the nurses, the CNAs. And so, I don't know, I enjoy working and collaborating with others to take care of people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I remember when I was a teenager, we'd volunteer at like these assisted living facilities. You talking about that actually brought it up with me, and I had forgot about that, but some like interesting past
that exposure as a kid really does impact your willingness to like go into this space, because otherwise I feel like it can seem a little daunting or scary for some because they're just not familiar with nursing facilities. Yeah,
and I think the overall setting of a SNF like perception is changing, because I think they used to be conceptually this place where you went to die, but now they're definitely complex like healthcare systems that are taking care of sick patients, and ultimate goal for many of these places is to short-term stay and get them home.
Right.
So a little bit of different perception on what that is.
That's the other thing I really like about the space is you have your two populations. You have your patients that you get to see come in, get and like receive their therapy, their IV antibiotics or whatever they need to be there for, and then they get better and they go back out into the community.
Right.
And so that you get to kind of celebrate their success and see them go. And then you have your other patients that they don't necessarily get better. Usually that's their last place that they're going to be, but you really get to know them, you get to know their families, and you get to have like that relationship with them for, whether it's 2 months to like 3 or 4 years, like usually you really get to know those patients and their families. And that's also very rewarding. And having the two different sets of populations, I think is pretty fun.
Yeah, I imagine, I know some people don't understand kind of the difference between like an acute short-term skilled patient versus like a long-term care patient, because I think our focus and our intent sometimes is a little bit different on how we're treating some of the short-term patients versus like the long-term patients. Right. So it's a little bit different complex ecosystem than most people are used to working in. So one of the things that kind of interests me, and maybe can you break it down a little bit better for us, is understanding the relationship between the ownership group, those maybe who own the facility, or even separate than the operating group, and then how does that interaction and how does it work with then provider or medical director groups, which you guys are part of now? So can you break down that kind of relationship between each of them? It's not just one company that's operating, owning, and doing the medical director group.
Right. I mean, you have sometimes like your REITs or whatever that are like the ownership, and then you have your groups that are in there operating and managing the facilities. Those are the ones we really interact with, are the operators and the ones that are in charge of running the facilities. And those are really your customer in this space, which is, I think is a different concept for a lot of providers because you think of your patient as your customer, but without that relationship with the facility operators and like being a partner to them and working with them, like you don't have access to those patients. So it is again, very collaborative, and that you do need to be able to work with the administrator and the DNS and even some of their regional leadership to help them with their goals and what they're trying to do for their facility, and not be a barrier or a hindrance to them being able to, take bariatric patients or like start a trach or whatever it is that they're wanting to do. Trying to find the resources to help support them in their goals, I think, is pretty important.
Yeah, one of the dynamics that I tried to help new providers in the space understand is that the medical director is not necessarily like an employee of the nursing home. It's really this contractual customer-based relationship. And sometimes that can be really difficult depending on like how it's going or the care that's providing, but that a nursing home ultimately can end a contract with the medical director, right?
The medical director itself is a vendor, which took me a while to understand, I think, when I first started in this space. And so it is someone that the facility contracts with to come in and provide those services. And I do think, oftentimes, medical directors are underutilized and really need, and I think that's what PaltMed is trying to do, is really, shine light on what a medical director can and should be doing for these facilities. But, medical directors can then either be with the attending providers or separate, but ultimately they are in charge of making sure that whoever is working, like provider-wise, is working in the facility is doing what they need to do to keep the facility in compliance. But frequently the medical director and the attending are one and the same, but there are a lot of models moving where the medical director is separate from the attending and they don't actually see the patients, but they're there looking at the policies, attending the copies, and trying to communicate and work with the administrator and the DNS to improve the quality of the care there at the facility.
Yeah. So then break down, then you add this another level of like APPs or nurse practitioners, physician assistant. How does that work in the ecosystem of working with the facilities?
There's a shortage of physicians out there, as we know. So APPs have really stepped up to help provide a lot of the care in the skilled nursing facilities. And so the way we usually structure it is the physician is typically there, the attending physician is typically there 1 day a week, seeing any of the new admissions as soon as possible, and then seeing any of the complex patients that the APP or the facility staff is really worried about or is at high risk for rehospitalization. And then your APPs are the ones usually there more days a week, ideally 5 days if it's a large enough census to support it, and are there to like take care of all the acute issues, do the follow-ups, do the discharges, and just make sure that the patient is moving along with their plans of care and are getting the care they need.
Yeah, I think broader, like on a macro level, also understanding these medical directors aren't just taking care of one facility often.
Yeah.
They're taking care of covering multiple facilities. And so the APPs help with kind of the day-to-day kind of management of patients.
Yeah, like our APPs we try to have in like 1, maybe 2 facilities, whereas the medical director usually, depending on the number of days they work, have a different facility for each day that they're working.
Yeah. And you had briefly mentioned, what is the role of the medical director versus like the actual providers that are rounding and taking care of patients? I think those are 2 separate kind of distinct roles.
Right.
Like, so what's the role of the medical director?
The role of the medical director is, clinical oversight and leadership at the facility. And so they really are meeting with the administrator and DNS regularly, talking about policies, talking about any, care concerns that have been identified, attending the quality assurance process improvement meetings, attending the psychotropic meetings, reviewing the pharmacy recommendations, and really like playing a key role in just the overall care and quality that is happening at the facility. The attending physician is what you think of as a typical provider, and they're the ones rounding and seeing the patients and doing those new admissions and follow-ups and acute visits.
Yeah. So historically, my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is traditionally it used to be like this local family medicine practitioner that would maybe contract with one nursing home, or for a period of time is kind of strategically, let's get a local orthopedic surgeon to be our medical director in hopes that that doctor would then refer their patients to the nursing home.
Right.
But a lot of shifts in like value-based care and Medicare requirements are now requiring a lot more involvement of the medical director in the kind of the day-to-day operations. Correct? Is that?
They are.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the facility administrators are still really just now understanding how to really utilize their medical director. I do think in the past, medical directors would maybe attend a coffee, and then, usually they were your doctors who were at the clinics and would just stop by like in the morning and see some patients and then leave. But with the complexity of the patients coming to these facilities these days, and then just the overall, regulatory requirement, these facilities do need more partnership and leadership. And so that model has really been transforming into this more involved model that a lot of the post-acute medical groups are doing, where they have, ideally a certified medical director that understands the regulations, understands the processes, and can really help provide that leadership to the facilities.
Yeah. And what are some of the trends that you're seeing in terms of the number of providers, the ability to recruit into this space, and sometimes even a little bit more difficult is retain providers in this space? Because overall there's a shortage across the United States.
Yes.
But what are some of those trends that you're seeing?
Recruiting providers to the space is definitely a challenge. I think finding good doctors that want to work in the space is probably one of our company's biggest challenges. But the thing that we, usually focus on is just playing to like their why they went into medicine, because this is a great population to help support. And then the flexibility that this type of job can offer. They can go and drop their kids off at school, and then they can go round and work in this space, and then still be able to leave and pick up their kids from school or get to their band concert or their, soccer game. And maybe if their notes aren't finished, then they're doing those at home, which you don't have the option to do in like a hospital setting, or even sometimes in an outpatient where you have your patients all scheduled out. It does give you a lot of flexibility, which I think is the best marketing point to get physicians to the space.
Yeah. And do you see any trends or anything in like terms of like technology that's helping the role be easier or better, or provide better care to the end user, which is the patient?
Yeah, I think technology is definitely starting to get there with AI. I think there's still a lot of challenges and unknowns and like the policies right now around AI, but I do think that the technology is moving that way, and I am excited for it, because it will get the providers back to really looking at the patient and really being present with the patient and having a better connection with them, instead of just trying to write their notes while they're in the room with the patient. So if you can have that ambient listening, recording that for the providers, they can then focus back on the patient. I think there'll be a lot of benefit for everyone from that.
I think it's exciting in terms of like the progress we're seeing, but also it'll be interesting to see, because I think as important, because the facility is your customer, patients, is that how do we use technology to make our jobs more efficient without taking the human connection out of it?
I'm really hoping technology at this point will now do a reverse and help us get back to the human side, because
less charting.
When we switched to electronic health records, everyone was really excited that was going to make everyone more efficient.
Right.
But really, it didn't, and there, it just made it so everyone was like very focused on their computers and not on the patient.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that technology is now going to be able to help us get back to focusing on that patient interaction.
Yeah. So to sidestep just a little bit, to maybe help new providers or providers in the space, or anyone who maybe happens to listen, what is the complexity and difficulty of after hours, overnight, weekend care, and why is that such an issue in long-term care? Because there's a lot of people trying to target this problem and solution, but what is the kind of dynamics that make it so difficult?
You
have nurses there all night.
The nurses are there all night. The patients are there all night, and problems don't stop. They are always different things are popping up. And then with the regulations themselves, they are on the hook to notify people. Like when there's a fall, like they have to notify you. Like there's so many things there, which are there for a reason. I mean, it helps protect the patient, but it does make the after hours calls and interactions a lot more than most spaces. And so, I mean, that is definitely a challenge because providers don't want to be on 24/7. So figuring out a way so that they can have that work-life balance and can, be off when they're done for the day and spend that time with their family uninterrupted is something that I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out. But companies like VitalCare that are coming in and being able to offer that after-hour support through telehealth, I think is a game changer for a lot of groups and helping to improve employee satisfaction and improve employee retention, but then also providing even better care to the patients because they're getting to actually see and interact with the provider, and they're getting, ideally reducing those rehospitalizations from that actual provider interaction instead of waking up another provider who's going to be back at the facility 2 a.m, who's half asleep, who is not going to necessarily make the best decisions, half asleep, and not going to be as engaged with that situation.
Yeah. One of the acute differences between like an acute setting and a long-term care setting that I think is also not completely understood is that during the day, you have your management staff there, you have an admissions person, you generally stepped up a little bit more, you have physical therapists there who help and distract and move patients, and then they all go home.
Yeah.
And then you have this even larger reduction of your nursing staff overnight.
Yeah.
And so nurse maybe during the day took care of 20, which is still a lot, but now they have like 30, 40 patients sometimes that they're taking care of. So these frantic calls that you get at like 2 a.m. is like these poor nurses, sometimes just out of school.
Brand new nurses. Yeah. They're like brand new.
They're still learning, or they're LPNs, which is even like a harder situation. You have this like really complex patients, and these nursing homes are turning into these like med surge units with complexity of medical. And so when their providers or anyone else is getting a call, understanding that these like poor nurses are just scared,
these nurses try so hard. It's not from a lack of trying. Usually they try really hard. They don't have a lot of resources, and sometimes they don't have as much education because they are newer. But so if providers can, come collaborate with them with a place of like understanding and empathy and really help train them and like educate them, like they are usually so appreciative and really love learning, and they want to do the right thing. And so giving them that guidance, I think, is really important for our space to help elevate, everyone working in this space.
Yeah. So what would you say to a provider who's maybe taking overnight call, and a nurse frantically calls and is like stressed out of their mind and doesn't really know what to do, and you're waking up this provider? Like, what would you say to that provider in terms of their approach and understanding of kind of the dynamics that they're facing from the nurse's side?
I mean, I just always say be kind. Like everyone's here trying their best. And so like if they're calling you, there's a reason. And so just be kind and try to help them the best you can. I mean, I've experienced myself where I've gotten a call at 3 a.m. for a nurse who's like, oh, well, this patient is having slow, gradual weight loss, I noticed, for over the last 3 months. And I'm like, okay. I was like, but could this be discussed in the morning?
Yeah.
like, is this not need to be discussed right now at 3 a.m.?
Right.
But, I don't think they always realize that the providers are not also awake and just waiting for their calls.
Yeah.
Which, I think some groups are now, but historically, at least with our group, we were asleep when they call, and we're supposed to be taking care of the urgent issues. And so I do know it has been frustrating for providers in the past getting woken up for non-urgent calls, but at the same time, you just have to take a breath and realize that they're just worrying about the patients, and they're trying to take care of the patients, and it is our job to help them.
One of my maybe frustrating, but now I laugh about it, I wasn't laughing about it then, was a call at 3 a.m. I don't know, it's 3 a.m. It's always 3 a.m. It's like the worst time because you can't quite go back to sleep. It's like, I noticed that they're supposed to be on a multivitamin. That's not on the MAR. I'm just notifying you, can we get it was But like kind of like you said, take that deep breath and be like, this is their world. They're awake. They're like busy all night. And so sometimes conceptually
and I think
lose.
you can kind of like nicely educate that, like, this is supposed to be for urgent issues now. Like we were sleepy. Like, I appreciate that you caught this and like it needs to be addressed. So thank you. But like if that could wait until 8 a.m. to be addressed, like that would probably be okay.
And I think a lot of times, if you take the time to educate the nurse in that moment, kindly, then you also will help prevent unnecessary calls in the future because they kind of understand.
Sometimes they just don't know.
Yeah, like for overall.
And so you just have to keep that in mind, and that they're just trying to do the best they can. So
I think that's what we're all trying to do. Just the best.
Everyone's trying to do the best they can.
This is such a difficult space to operate in. So,
for like employee retention, I mean, I think one of the most important things is just your company culture and really realizing that, if you, from our perspective, if you take care of the provider, then they're going to take care of the patient. And so we try really hard just to take care of the provider and like educate them on, what the environment is like and what the realities for the nurses are like, and really like try to find providers and hire providers who have that empathy and who can be kind. I mean, a lot of the medicine, assuming, they went through a good school, like they know the basics and you can teach them the rest. And really in recruitment, you're looking for people who have a passion for helping others and are going to have, be kind and team players and getting the right people on your team.
That's awesome. Thanks, Adair. One of my favorite parts of our podcast, because our name of our podcast is SNF This.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard about this or were forewarned. So I have a couple of smells for you to sniff to try to like name maybe what it is. This is like a funny offside part of our podcast, but like just take a sniff and see if you can name it. Starting off easier.
Pepto-Bismol?
Oh, you're right on it. Some people make it a little bit more complicated than it actually is.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not gonna give anything like too bad.
Aspercrete or vapor rub type stuff.
You got it. Okay, a little harder.
Cough syrup.
You're good. Okay, last one.
All right. What is this purple? I don't know if I know
You're
this
a mom.
one.
You might get it.
I don't know.
Grape
Tylenol?
You nailed it. You're great. Well, Adair, thanks for being on our podcast. We love working with you and your group in Oregon and Washington.
Thank you for having me.
And well, hopefully we'll have you again sometime. But thanks for sharing your time and your knowledge today. So,
thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Before we conclude, huge thanks to our sponsor, VitalCare Connect. Whether you're burning the midnight oil or just trying to survive another 2 a.m. call, VitalCare Connect provides on-call medical director support whenever you need it, nights, weekends, and holidays. With coverage nationwide, they're leading the way in post-acute care, elevating quality, expanding access, and supporting well-being for all. Learn more at vitalcare.org. Thank you for joining us for this episode of SNF This. Share this show with your favorite CNA or anyone who's survived an all-staff meeting fueled by cold coffee. Until next time, I'm Chance. In skilled nursing, if you sniff something, say something.